Hello, my babies. I hope you had a good day. I miss y'all. You ready to get back into it? Okay. We're continuing on with the Tales of Despero on Chapter 29. Start with the curtsy and finish with the thread. Interesting. Marjorie Sow's luck continued. On her first day on the job as a castle servant, she was sent to deliver a spool of red thread to the princess. Mind, said the head of the serving staff, a dour woman named Louise. She is royalty, so you must make sure you curtsy. How's that? Shouted Mig. You must curtsy, shouted Louise. Gore, said Mig. Yes, ma'am. She took the spool of thread from Louise and made her way up the golden stairs to the princess's room, talking to herself as she went. Here I am, off to see the princess. Me, Marjorie Sow, seeing the princess up close and personal like. And first off, I must curtsy because she is the royalty. At the door to the princess's room, Mig had a sudden crisis of confidence. She stood a moment, clutching the spool of thread and muttering to herself. Now, how did that go? She said. Give the princess the thread and then give her a curtsy. No. First the curtsy, then the thread. That's it. Gore, that's right. That's the order. Start with the curtsy and finish with the thread. She knocked on the princess's door. Enter, said the P. Mig, hearing nothing, knocked again. Enter, said the P. And Mig still heard nothing. Knocked yet again. Maybe, she said to herself, the princess ain't to home. But then the door was flung wide, and there was the princess herself, staring right at Marjorie Sow. Gore, said Mig, her mouth hanging open. Hello, said the P. Are you the new serving maid? Have you brought me my thread? Curtsy I must, shouted Mig. She gathered her skirts, dropped the spool of thread, stuck a foot out, and stepped on the spool, rocked back and forth for what seemed like quite a long time, both to watching Princess and the rocking Mig, and finally fell to the floor with a Miggish thud. Whoopsie, said Marjorie Sow. The P could not help it. She laughed. That's all right, she said to Mig, shaking her head. It's the spirit of the thing that counts. How's that? Shouted Mig. It's the spirit of the thing that counts, shouted P. Thank you, miss, said Mig. She got slowly to her feet. She looked at the princess. She looked down to the floor. First the curtsy, and then the thread, Mig muttered. Pardon? Said the P. Gore, said Mig, the thread. She dropped to her hands and knees to locate the spool of thread. When she found it, she stood back up and offered it to P. I brought you your thread, didn't I? Lovely, said the princess as she took the thread from Mig. Thank you so much. I cannot seem to hold on to a spool of red thread. Every one I have disappears somehow. Are you making a thing? Said Mig, squinting at the cloth in P's hand. I am making a history of the world. My world, said P, in tapestry. See? Here is my father, the king, and he is playing the guitar because that is something he loves to do and does quite well. Your dad plays the guitar, and he plays quite well. How about that? And here is my mother, the queen, and she is eating soup because she loved soup. Soup, gore. That's against the law. Yes, said the princess. My father outlawed it because my mother died while she was eating it. Your ma's dead? Yes, said P. She died just last month. She bit the bottom lip to stop it from trembling. Ain't that the thing, said Mig. My ma is dead too. How old were you when she died? Bold was I, said Mig, taking a step back away from the princess. I'm sorry then. No, how old? How old were you? Shouted the P. Not but 6, said Mig. I'm sorry, said the princess. She gave me a quick, deep look of sympathy. How old are you now? 12 years. So am I, said the princess. We're the same age. What is your name? She shouted. Marjorie Sow. But most just call me Mig. And I saw you once before, princess. You passed me by on a little white horse. On my birthday, it was, and I was in the field with Uncle's sheep, and it was sunset time. Did I wave to you? Asked the princess. Did you wave? Shouted the P. Yes, nodded Mig. But you didn't wave back, said the princess. I did, said Mig, only you didn't see it. Someday I will sit on a little white horse and wear a crown and wave. Someday, said Mig, and she put up a hand to touch her left ear. I will be a princess too. Really? Said the P. And she gave Mig another quick, deep look, but said nothing else. When Mig finally made her way back down the golden stairs, Louise was waiting for her. How long, she roared, did it take you to deliver a spool of thread to the princess? Too long, I guess. That's right, said Louise, and she gave Meg a good clout to the ear. You are not destined to be one of our star servants. This is already abundantly clear. No, ma'am, said Meg. That's all right, though, because I aim to be a princess. You? A princess? Don't make me laugh. This, reader, was a little joke on Louise's part, as she was not a person who laughed, ever. Not even at a notion as ridiculous as Marjorie Sow becoming a princess. Chapter 30. To the dungeon. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Mig had enough to eat, and eat she did. She quickly became plump, and then plumper still. She grew rounder and bigger, only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Mig was the tiniest bit lazy, and, too, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Marjorie Sow could effectively perform. In quick session, Mig failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess, a seamstress. She sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, sent to clean a room, she stood, open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, explaining over and over again, "Gore, ain't it pretty?" Gore, ain't it something then? And did no cleaning at all. And while Mig was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Just as Mig's inability to perform any job well had its consequences. For finally, at a last resort, Louise sent Mig to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Mig dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly on the king's pork chops moments before it was to be served to him. Of all the good-for-nothings I have encountered, shouted the cook, surely you are the worst, the most cauliflowered ear. The good-for-nothingest. There's only one place left for you, the dungeon. Eh? Said Mig, cupping a hand around her ear. You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on. Reader, you know that mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that the humans feared it too? Certainly, it was never far from their thoughts. In the warm months, the foul odor rose out of its dark depths and permeated the whole of the castle. And in the still, cold nights of winter, terrible howls issued from that dark place, as if the castle itself were weeping and moaning. It's only the wind, the people of the castle assured each other. Nothing but the wind. This is how big Mig has gotten after eating so much. Bless that little heart. Excuse me just for a second. Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, and who had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Mig's fate? Gore, I hope not. What kind of story would this be without Mig? Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool, shouted Cook. This is what you do. You take the tray of food down to the dungeon, and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that? I reckon so, said Mig. I'll take the old man the tray, and he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty, it would be, then. I bring the empty tray back from the deep downs. That's right, said Cook. Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to buggle it. Eh? Said Mig. Nothing, said Cook. Good luck to you. You'll be needing it. She watched as Mig descended down the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despero had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Mig had a light. On the tray with the food, there was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at Cook and smiled. That cauliflower-eared, good-for-nothing fool, said Cook, shaking her head. What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling, I ask you? Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, You must read on. Chapter 31, A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Mig. Perhaps that is because sometimes when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Mig's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper workings of Mig's olfactory senses, meaning she couldn't smell, because he had hit her in the nose and injured her nose. I hope he has a good, something good coming towards him. This happened often enough. Oh, never mind. And so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and hopelessness and evil was not at all discernible to her. And she went happily down the twisting and turning stairs. "Gosh," she shouted, "it's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, it is, Mig," she shouted herself. She answered herself. "But if I was a princess, I would be so glittery, light-like. There would be no place in the world that was dark to me." At this point, Marjorie Sow broke into a little song that went something like this. "I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be. The P-ha-bee, someday I will be." Mig, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer, more of a bellower, really. But in her little song, there was, to the rightly tuned ear, a certain kind of music. And as Mig went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spoon on his head. "Yes, yes," whispered the rat, "a lovely song, just the song I've been waiting to hear." And Roscoe quietly fell into step beside Marjorie Sow. At the bottom of the stairs, Mig shouted out into the darkness, "Gore, it's me, Marjorie Sow. Most calls me Mig. Delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deep Downs." There was no response. The dungeon was quiet. But it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of small, frightening sounds. There was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around the darkened corner there came a low moan from someone in pain. And then, too, there was the noise of rats going about their business, their sharp tails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them. Let me start that sentence again. And then, too, there was the noise of the rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear those sounds. If we were standing together in the dungeon, we would hear these sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other out of fear. But what did Marjorie Sow hear? That's right, absolutely nothing, because of her bad ear from Uncle. And so she was not afraid at all, not in the least. She held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. "Gore," said Mig, "look at them things. I never imagined there could be so many spoons in the whole wide world." "There is more to this world than anyone could imagine," said a blooming voice from the darkness. "True, true," whispered Roscoe. "The old jailer speaks true." "Gore," said Mig. "Who said that?" She turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. Let's do one more chapter, huh? Chapter 32. Beware of the Rats. The candlelight on Mig's tray revealed Gregory limping towards her, the thick rope tied around his ankle, his hands outstretched. You, Gregory presumes, have brought the food for the jailer. Gore, said Mig. She took a step back. Give it here, said Gregory, and he took the tray from Mig and sat down on an overturned kettle that had rolled free from the tower. He balanced the tray on his knees and stared at the covered plate. Gregory assumes that today again there is no soup. Ah, said Mig. Soup, shouted Gregory. Illegal, shouted Mig back. Most foolish, muttered Gregory as he lifted the cover off the plate. Too foolish to be born. A world without soup. He picked up a drumstick and put the whole of it in his mouth and chewed and swallowed. Here, said Mig, staring at him. You forgot the bones. Not forgotten, chewed. Gore, said Mig, staring at Gregory with respect. You eat the bones? You are most ferocious. Gregory ate another piece of chicken, a wing, bones, and all. And then another. Mig watched him admiringly. Someday, she said, moved suddenly to tell this man her deepest wish. I will be a princess. At this pronouncement, Churrasco, who was still at Mig's side, did a small, deliberate jig of joy in the light of one candle. His dancing shadow was large and fearsome indeed. Gregory sees you, Gregory said to the rat's shadow. Roscaro ceased his dance. He moved to hide beneath Mig's skirts. Eh, shouted Mig, what's that? Nothing, said Gregory. So you aim to be a princess? Well, everyone has a foolish dream. Gregory, for instance, dreams of a world where soup is legal. And that rat, Gregory is sure, has some foolish dream too. If only you knew, whispered Roscaro. What? Shouted Mig. Gregory said nothing more. Instead, he reached into his pocket and then held his napkin to his face and sneezed into it once, twice, 3 times. Bless you, shouted Mig. Bless you, bless you. Back to the world of light, Gregory whispered, and he balled the napkin up and placed it on his tray. Gregory is done, he said, and he held out the tray to Mig. Done, are you? Then the tray goes back upstairs. Cook says it must. You take the tray to the deep downs, you wait for the old man to eat, and then you bring the tray back. Them's my instructions. Did they instruct you too? To be aware of the rats? The what? The rats. What about 'em? Beware of them, shouted Gregory. Right, said Mig. Beware of the rats. Roscaro hid beneath Mig's skirt, rubbed his front paws together. Warn her all you like, old man, he whispered. My hour has arrived. The time is now, and your rope must break. No nibbling this time, rather a serious chew that will break it in 2. Yes, it's all coming clear. Revenge is at hand. That's it for tonight. Next time we will start on chapter 33. I love you. I hope you sleep well, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.